That is absolutely right. That's certainly one of the possibilities, Matt. What we saw last night was, for the first time ever in this entire process, there was a parliamentary majority that at least seemed to be in favour of an agreement on Brexit, although just minutes later, that same parliament decided they didn't like the government's timetable to try and ram that legislation through that would have allowed Brexit to take place. As you might imagine, Prime Minister Boris Johnson less than thrilled at that result.
I must express my disappointment that the House has again voted for delay, rather than a timetable that would have guaranteed that the UK would be in a position to leave the EU on October the 31st with a deal. And we now face further uncertainty, and the EU must now make up their minds over how to answer Parliament's request for a delay. And the first consequence, Mr. Speaker, is that the government must take the only responsible course and accelerate our preparations for a no-deal outcome.
Now, Johnson's critics will say that that's yet another empty threat, rather like his threat that he would leave on October 31st, do or die, and he'd rather be dead in the ditch than ask for an extension beyond October 31st. He referenced there, though, Matt, what the European side must now do. And of course, Parliament mandated him on Saturday to send a letter requesting an extension to the end of January, a 3-month delay to Brexit. He said very clearly at the time he didn't want there to be a delay, and he certainly doesn't want to be such a long delay now. It will be up to the 27 heads of state in Europe and Donald Tusk, the man that chairs their meetings, to offer an extension if they so desire. And if it's a longer one, then it's very clear from number 10 Downing Street overnight that they will push for that general election between now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. Some talk that it could be a flexible extension as well. Willem, Marx, thanks very much for that. Well, of course, the focus now shifts to the European Union to delay Brexit yet again. Let's get out to Silvia Amaro in Brussels. And what are the chances that EU leaders will agree to this? I know that some of them have already been speaking overnight in the wake of what we saw happen in the parliamentary chamber in the UK, Silvia.
Well, essentially, Matt, it's too early to tell. At this point, the question for the EU is, will it say yes to a request for an extension, but also when will it decide about that extension? And second, how will it decide, how will it take that decision? Let me read you one comment from Donald Tusk, the President of the European Council, reacting to what happened in the House of Commons yesterday. He said, following Boris Johnson's decision to pause the process of ratification of the withdrawal agreement, and in order to avoid a no-deal Brexit, I will recommend the EU27 accept the UK request for an extension. For this, I will propose a written procedure. So two very important points out of this statement from Donald Tusk. One, he is mentioning an extension. He does not mention the timeline. He does not mention January 2020 as the timeline that the EU should be working with. And he also mentions that the decision should be taken by written procedure, meaning that the EU27 do not need to come to Brussels for an emergency meeting. Having said that, though, and even though Donald Tusk chairs the discussions among the 27 European capitals, before, in April of this year, when the EU got another request for an extension from the UK, back then Donald Tusk had proposed an extension of 1 year, and yet there was some opposition from certain countries, in particular France, and that extension got reduced to 6 months. So let's see how the 27 will react to this request for an extension. It's not just up to Donald Tusk to make that call. In the meantime, let me show you some remarks from Michel Barnier, the EU's Brexit negotiator, saying that if the UK wants to leave in an orderly fashion, this is the deal. Let's take a listen.
If Britain wants an orderly exit, which is far better than a disorderly exit, then this is the only possible agreement. This agreement opens the door to 3 further years of negotiations. But of course, we are going to have to negotiate beyond Brexit and the divorce settlement. Maybe 2, 3 or more years for some areas to rebuild everything that has to be unpicked.
It's Michel Barnier there, the EU's Brexit negotiator, making it very clear that Brexit uncertainty will drag for 2, 3 or more years. So whatever happens next, the UK and the EU still need to figure out their future relationship. Having said that, Matt, what we know is that the EU27 are now discussing that request for an extension, but we know as well that they did not want to be in this position. We heard last week from the French President Emmanuel Macron making it very clear that the EU and the UK should move on to the next phase, but at the same time, the EU does not want to be blamed for a no-deal Brexit either.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.